Today we're going to talk about the difference between NEPQ, neuro-emotional persuasion questioning, and what's called consultative selling. Which is more effective and why? I get asked this question a lot, so I want to address it. First, let's take you back in time. In college, I majored in behavioral science and human psychology, which is the study of the brain, and why human beings make decisions and how and why people are persuaded and or not persuaded to do something. So check this out. According to behavioral science, there are 3 forms of communication. I suggest you write these down because once you understand the differences in persuasion and where you are now in your sales ability compared to where you could be, completely will change your life. Now, the first mode of communication, what is known as boiler room selling, era 1 type of sales, according to behavioral science, is, number 1, we're the least persuasive when we tell people things, or we attempt to dominate them, posture them, manipulate them, or push them into doing something we want them to do. Think boiler room selling, like, hey, I got a great opportunity for you. Then we talk about the features and benefits of what we do, and then we push and tell them why they need to buy or why they need to go with you. Now, the second form of communication is what is known as consultative selling. It's era 2 type of sales. We're more persuasive when we attempt to have a discussion. Consultative selling came out in the late 1980s with books like Spin Selling, where they taught how to ask logical-based questions about the needs of the client. But what's a potential downfall of this approach when you only ask logical-based questions? We call those surface-level questions. Well, your prospect's just going to give you logical-based surface-level answers in return. And do people buy on logic or emotion? They buy on emotion 100% of the time. Now, here's some examples of consultative questions that actually trigger resistance. Please never use these. They're so outdated and they are just surface level questions. You never want to use these. How about this one? Sally, what's keeping you awake at night? Do you still ask that question? Stop. What about this one? Can you tell me 2 problems you're having the most? Or who besides you would be involved in this decision? Boring. Or how about this? What are you looking for in a solution? Once again, it's a surface level question. You have to learn how to go far deeper than that if you ever want to pull out their emotional state and create massive urgency in making the sale. How about this? What sort of budget have you set aside for this? Surface level. You see, consultative selling only ends up selling to the needs of the prospect. But things have changed. Decision makers and budget holders have changed, including the market and competition, and today, it is just not enough to understand our customers' needs. Even behavioral science points out that there are 3 main ways to influence human behavior. 1, most common way is by addressing needs. 2, is to understand their wants. That is completely missing in consultative selling. And completely missing. 3, by far the most effective way to influence human behavior is through core values, which is a mix of wants, beliefs, and standards. This is also completely missing in consultative selling. This is why consultative selling is good to identify the customer's needs, but not good enough to help you get the competitive advantage you need to make a difference if you want to be a top earner and make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year as a commissioned salesperson. Realize this, your prospect don't always buy what they need because when you first start talking to them, most of your prospects don't even know what their real problems are. Or maybe they know they have a problem, but they don't know how bad the problem is. Or maybe they don't understand the consequences of what will happen if they don't solve the problem. Or through your questioning skills that you can learn, you're able to help them see that they have maybe 2 or 3 or 4 of their problems that they didn't even realize they had. Prospects always, however, buy what they want, for that is of value to them. Needs are just product specific. They're rational. They're above the surface level. They're based on facts and often measurable in terms of implications for the customers. Now, wants, on the other hand, are product neutral. They're emotional. This is where personal buying reasons come from, like what's behind their why. They're below the surface and they're based on perception and often not measurable. So it's once again more persuasive than the first mode of telling your story, putting sales pressure on them and assuming the sale, but you're starting to play the numbers game because very little emotion is brought out by asking only logical-based surface-level questions. Now, the third mode of communication, which is called dialogue, which is era 3 type of sales, is we're the most persuasive when we allow others to persuade themselves. Dialogue, when we ask what are called neuro-emotional persuasion questions. That stands for NEPQ. Now, this is the key. This is where you're going to learn certain questions and techniques that work with human behavior to get the prospect to pull you in rather than you trying to push them. Now, The question is, how do you get somebody to persuade themselves? Do you just show up and give your prospect permission to persuade themselves? Like, hey, Amy, go ahead and persuade yourself. And by the way, make sure you write the check out for me. No, of course not. You have to learn specific skilled questions and when and how to ask them in a step-by-step structure that will get your prospect to sell themselves rather than you trying to do it. NEPQ allows you to sell to prospects' problems, their current state, and sell to where they want to be or go, their wants, which we call that their objective state. Okay, we just went over the difference between NEPQ and consultative selling, which is more effective and why, and that is your tip for the day.